Hey, everybody. Good evening. Beautiful, crispy, cold evening in Minnesota here. We are in the dead of winter. This is the Ask a Painter live show. I am your host, Nick Slavic. I'm the proprietor of the Nick Slavic Painting and Restoration Company. I'm all of the host of this show, Ask a Painter Live. It is a live Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, YouTube, potentially TikTok show. TikTok still doesn't interface with all this, but it's a show where we talk about the life of a master craftsperson and paint business entrepreneurship and emphasis on paint business entrepreneurship and general business acumen right now, because tonight kicks off my favorite series of shows that I do during the entire year. It's called Mastering the Basics. I go through the steps to professionalization. Nearly everybody wants to grow a big business, a profitable business, whether you work alone, single owner operator, whether you want to have a $60 million multi state conglomerate. These steps you must do, right? If you want to work alone the rest of your life, you do these, you do these steps and you will make more money, have more freedom, have more fun. Doesn't matter if you have an employee or not. That's just how it goes. So, tonight, mastering the basics, we're kicking it off with proven processes, which basically is SOPs. At the end of this show and in the notes, I have my email address. You can email me, mention this show, ask for the SOPs, and I will send you my entire packet of the SOPs. I have a whole presentation to show you guys here. It's a mini master's class, but what you're seeing here is a completely revamped, revised, updated, renovated series of standard operating procedures. In the past, I had a whole folder full of PDFs and G sheets and things like this. I have made a single source of truth for you guys. I have compiled all of my SOPs in G sheet format, so you can insert your logos, tweak the processes a little bit if you need to, but it has all of these things in here for you guys. We have walls, trim, cabinets, ceiling, exterior siding. We have my RRP process here if you want to do lead stuff. Garage doors. Sorry, we got things covering my tabs. Decks, fences, porches, pergolas. We have gear stuff, right? We have tools. We have spray tips and stuff like that. We have sprayer cleaning SOPs. Some of my logos evidently aren't translating very well. Whatever, you'll fix them when you get all this free stuff anyway. Adhesion test, all that good stuff. But this is going to be yours when you get it. I'm going to send this to you just for watching the show. I will ask you for a few things, but otherwise, I just want to show you guys how appreciative I am. Other people have helped me professionalize my business. I am going to do the same for you as well, too. So as we, let me switch one more thing here. All right. Before we get going, a little bit of housekeeping here. I have in the show notes the schedule of all of the Mastering the Basics shows. There are 8 shows. I did a preview show last week. There are 7 shows with 7 steps. And then there is show number 8, the summary one, where we can talk about any of your questions, any of your comments. We'll go through the whole process together. But basically, we're talking about this week SOPs, proven processes. Then we go to estimating. Then we go to production process. Then we go, we do have a break for Expo in there at that point. Then we go to marketing. Then we go to human resources, financials and goal tracking. And then LMA, lead, manage, hold accountability. Those steps in that order, if you follow these things, take these resources, you will move yourself towards professionalization. This is the thing that I did to get my business to 0 to 40 people. This is what all my friends did. This is what the PCA preaches. I'm here to be your liaison for this so you can professionalize your business. And again, I don't want to hear any of this. Well, I don't want to grow a big business. If you own a business, you have to do these things. Otherwise, you own a job and a hobby. You can absolutely do that if you want to. Problem is, most people like low friction, low stress, lots of fun, lots of money. There's only one way to do that, is to do some boring, mundane, unsexy, potentially sexy to me, maybe not sexy to everybody, business things to get your business there. For years and years and years, I told myself I could be a grumpy old master craftsperson. As long as I do an amazing paint job, I can treat people like crap. I don't have to run a real business and everything's going to be fine. Guess what, folks? 2025. Our clients, they will not put up with that. they will fire you and find somebody who gives them an experience and an amazing paint job. There's lots of us out there. So I will tell you this, if you do not have all this done, don't worry about it. It typically takes years to get all this stuff done, get some repetitions, change it all, customize it for your business. That is, it's the unspoken truth about all this stuff, which is a lot of the coaching companies will tell you 1 to 3 years of really hard work will get you there. But when you do, it's glorious and beautiful. And I'm on the other side of that stuff. And I can tell you every single thing I'm going to show you today and on the rest of the mastering the basics is 100% worth it if you ever want to do this for more than a couple years. So here we go, folks. Housekeeping. And then we get into mastering the basics, show number one, step number one, proven process, your standard operating procedures. Expo, a couple weeks, the Super Bowl of our industry is going to be kicking off. I will be there with 1,000, 1,500 of the biggest thought leaders, the people who have done SOPs before, and they will be there. We will be doing lots of education, lots of socialization, lots of togetherness, camaraderie building. You don't want to miss this, folks. This is the big one. All of our champion sponsors, Sherwin-Williams, Benjamin Moore, are pulling out the stops, giving us amazing parties in the evenings, chances to eat, to drink, to socialize. The education is top notch. We're at a historic 5-star resort. Here's what you're going to say. You're going to take a look at this. You're going to click on that registration link, and you're going to see the cost and the time. There's a cost to fly here. There's a cost to stay here. There's a cost to register here. There's also the cost of leaving your business for the most part, better part of a week. Guess what, folks? You have to invest in yourself. There's never going to be a time where it syncs up perfectly with your calendar. There's always going to be estimates to do. There's always going to be jobs to do. There's always going to be one last thing. I have said all those things before, right? I'm telling you, on the other side of all this, having been to 8 expos, give or take, this is a life-changing series of days. The time you take off from your business, the maybe one job that you put off till the next week will still be there when you get back, right? This opportunity is going to be gone, however, right? 5-star resort, 1,500 of your greatest friends, all the major vendors. We have mountains, we have wilderness, historic resort, amazing, amazing 100-year-old resort, deep history everywhere. If you're not here, folks, we're probably not going to be doing this again at this type of place anytime soon. So I want you to get ready. I want you to prep your business. I want you to take the time to be here. There's no pain emergencies and everything will be there when you get back, but you're going to come back a new human, refreshed. So I would challenge you, join me in this stuff. And if you don't think it's worth it, if you didn't have your mind blown, if you didn't have your life altered, you come find me personally and we'll have a long discussion about it. So look forward to see you there, guys. This is it. I prep for this thing all year long. It's going to be an absolute blast. So here we go, folks. As far as I can tell, I have been doing the Mastering the Basics series for 5 years. I believe this is the 5th year anniversary. I look through all my show archives. I look through all my old presentations. I have, as far as I can tell, this is the 5th presentation that I've done. And as my business has professionalized, I have altered these with it. And it's super fun to look back through my archive about my new learnings, the learnings that my friends helped me with, the things I was experiencing in my business. So today, I want to tell you that this was the first thing I ever did to professionalize my business. It's been the thing that has been tried and true and certain for the longest in my business. And I am here to present you with a mini master's class, Mastering the Basics, the 5th anniversary, standard operating procedures, your proven process, show number 488. Get all your questions in on Instagram. I'm watching YouTube, LinkedIn, and Facebook as well too. Any questions you guys have, drop them in here. Absolutely love this. I'm already getting comments from YouTube, Mark Blackhurst from Facebook. Thank you much. I always love the compliments. People on IG, tons of people watching. You guys are quiet in the chatter though. So I would love to hear about your favorite SOP. I would love comments on mine. And let's get after it, folks. Mastering the Basics, standard operating procedures. So number one, little insight into our industry, right? So I posted one of my standard operating procedures. This is my most tried and true one. This is my most famous standard operating procedure. Painting the walls in a bedroom. It's a 4-hour SOP. I break it down. There's 17 or 18 steps, depending on the year that you've seen that SOP. And I posted this in my favorite group, the painting contractors group. And I got some feedback, as you can imagine. Let me give you a little sample of the feedback that I received. Number one, and I blurred out names because I respect all these people, it's painting, not rocket scientists. This is an indication of a micromanager. Interesting. This is funny S right here, LOL. Sounds like a scam or ripoff to a customer. Interesting. Somebody hearted that one. Man, if I had to go work and follow that every day, I'd feel more like a slave than I do a painter who enjoys coming in every day. Not bashing it at all. Everyone is different, but for me, I'd never work like that. Do you understand what an SOP is? An SOP is a recipe. It's a repair manual for a car. It's how to bake a cake. How many humans will pick up a whole bunch of ingredients and just start guessing to make a cake or make pizza dough or make bread, right? It is a standard operating procedure to pick up a recipe to make some sort of baked good, right? People who have made bread 1,000 times still take out the recipe to make sure everything's right. Temperatures, quantities, volumes, things like that. These are people who are professional painters or claim to be professional painters saying, I don't follow anything written down. This is too rigorous. They called it funny. They called it a scam. They called it a ripoff. Micromanagement. This is an instruction card, right? These are the same people in the same industry. Listen, I don't want to bash our industry. God love them. But here is the deal, folks. I used to be a naysayer. I used to be negative like this too. I bring this up. This is not everyone in our industry, but this is an indication. These are the same types of humans who have a mindset who say, there's no good kids out there. I hire these kids. They're lazy. They're stupid. They don't do anything. Maybe it's because you never trained them. You never mentored them. You never gave them a recipe card. You never gave them a standard operating procedure. You never coached them through it. You never held them accountable. You never checked in on them. Maybe you just hire people, throw them on a job site and say, just do it. Come on. That's most of our industry, folks. It is a normal standard thing to have a recipe card, a standard operating procedure, a task list, a to-do list for jobs, train people on it and hold them accountable to it. So that is a little indication. Again, I bring this up because this wasn't an anomaly. This is a lot of feedback we get in the industry. I understand you if this is you, right? I have been there. I've met thousands of these people across the United States. I get it. You're not bad people. You're not stupid. The problem is if you own a business and you do this, you are going to be at a huge disadvantage if you do not professionalize your business, even if you stay as a single owner operator. I am here to champion the cause of you. If you want to have one person, if you want to have a couple people, if you want to have your kids working for you in the evening, if you want to have a $50 million business, every single one of those humans who ever wants to have money and no stress doing this does this sort of thing. So I am here for you. Now, Jill, PCA's executive director, is watching on Instagram. Jill, doing the Lord's work here. I understand you're checking up on me, making sure I'm doing my job. I'm here for you. Can't wait to see you at the expo again. Tyler Gentry, I created SOPs for every piece of my company. Possibly went too crazy. Thank you, Nick. You've helped me in so many ways. We're going to talk about creating too many SOPs later, Tyler. So hang tight. All right. Grit can make up for SOPs for a while. You cannot write things down. You can do things from memory. The problem is if you ever try to teach it to somebody else, that immediately fails. So you can use grit. You can do stuff. I did this. Nothing was written down. Well, come on. I'm going to show you once and you do it forever. That's not how humans work, right? Constant interaction, constant mentoring, constant training. SOPs aren't perfect. You can make up with them with human effort and grit, but it won't take you very long, right? Humans move towards entropy, right? Entropy is chaos. If you do nothing, humans will move towards chaos. If I build a house and don't heat it, don't cool it, don't maintain it, it will eventually rot to the ground. Humans do the same thing, right? They need constant management, constant interaction. I do. I have 4 appointments a week to hold me accountable to the things that I want to do. Phil Klein on Facebook. I've never seen your SOP for growing a beard. Some things, Phil Klein, I actually have a slide for this later. Hard to believe. You wouldn't, you know me enough. You would know I have a slide for this, but some things don't need an SOP. Some things just happen, right? And growing my beard does not need an SOP. All right. Success is a combination of information and then the grit to get it all done. Ask a Painter is a free resource to you. At the end of this, I have my email address. I'm going to send you all of the standard operating procedures for my company in G Sheet form so you can insert your logo, change a few steps, and use it for what you want. The problem is, if only that's not the thing that separates successful companies, right? Access to information is not what holds people back. Information is out there for free. Who can actually have the grit to take that information and do something with it over a very long time horizon? Access to information is not that. Otherwise, I'd be giving away all my secrets to all the competition out there, right? I don't have secrets. That's not what's holding other people back. I readily give of this because I know it takes a human to be consistent and gritty over a very long period of time to do this. Unsatisfying reality, folks. People who win do a whole bunch of unsexy things really well consistently. And that's the grit, right? Job costing, standard operating procedures, holding people accountable, all this and that. This is the basis of the Mastering the Basics series, right? I'm going to tell you a bunch of crap that you already know, that you know you need to do. I'm going to give you some resources to do it. I can't necessarily coach you, but it's a good start and you're going to have to get this stuff done, right? We're removing excuses daily as we go through this stuff here. So Travis, Phil Klein, Jeans buddy Jeans, his hair grows at a pace that can be watched. Super crazy. I'm good at very few things. Growing a beard is one of them. So you have to think about this too. An SOP is not going to solve everything. You have to have the right human in the right seat with the right SOP, and you have to have the right manager, right? If you just take my wall SOP, throw it in a file cabinet in your office, completely useless. There needs to be human interaction on the edge of it. So this is one of the most beautiful things ever. If it's not written down, it doesn't exist. Hey, Facebook people who commented on my SOP that this is micromanagement, it's a scam, and things like that. If you don't write this stuff down, it does not exist. So common test for this is, hey, yeah, everybody in my company knows how to paint cabinets. It's like, good. If I shook one out of bed in the middle of the night and said, show me the step-by-step list that you were trained on to paint these cabinets, 99% of all painting companies couldn't produce a written document that said, this is the steps that we use to do this. This is how we train people. This is how we do cabinets. You cannot even start to coach employees, apprentices, craftspeople, or hold them accountable, whether they do things great or not great, if things aren't written down, right? If you can say, you didn't do that right. If I was the employee, I'd say, well, listen here, buddy, you don't have a process for this. You told me how to do it once. I don't have any other data points. So if you say I'm doing it wrong, just show me where I'm wrong. Show me on the list what step I missed. And if there is no list, there is no step to be missed, the employee's right. And that's just the truth of the world, everybody. So here's a very sad data point that I have. I'm guessing, based on a little bit of data and some feelings, that about 40% of all the templates that I send out don't get used. Right? This is just interactions. I used to do a whole bunch of interactive G sheets with job costing, right? I don't have the time for that anymore, but when I used to send this out, I would see some people not even open them up, right? So this is me telling you guys, access to information is not what's holding you back. You have to do something with it. As business owners, we will constantly need to put forth effort to this. Phil Klein just commented on Facebook, discipline equals freedom. It's my fourth core value, and it's exactly the ethos of Mastering the Basics. So I don't want Mastering the Basics to be a bunch of finger pointy stuff, but this is a series that I do every year at this time because 2024 is done. We have set some goals for this year. We're raring to go. Leads are coming in. We're in the second week of standard work here, and we want to get going. We want to do stuff. We want to get going. Guess what, folks? This is what we have to do. There's a whole bunch of this sort of stuff that doesn't feel like it's going to move you towards professionalization, but it absolutely does. And it has to be done consistently with discipline over a long time horizon. SOPs are not perfect. Just because it's written down doesn't mean everybody's going to do it perfectly all the time. Think about Blockbuster, right? They had very strict SOPs. They had late fees, store operations, rental cycles. My God, if you had for all you people out there from the late 1900s, if you took out a VHS tape from Blockbuster and did not bring that back, you have ruined your life for a series of months, right? Now, streaming and digital rentals showed up. Blockbuster stuck to this very rigid set of SOPs, and guess what? They don't exist anymore, right? Harken back to a company called Netflix that we hear of. In the late 1900s, they used to send you DVDs. in the mail. When you were done with those DVDs, you would send them back and they'd send you more. They saw streaming coming and they pivoted from sending you DVDs to actually digital streaming, right? So SOPs are not perfect. Sometimes rigid adherence to these things may produce failure, right? I would argue that there are some that do not. There's an SOP for brushing your teeth. There's an SOP for painting walls. Unless something drastically changes, holding rigid to those is probably okay. But management SOPs, things like that, how you deliver your product, what your product is, R&D, research and design. If you stick rigidly to those things, you might not innovate and you might not progress with the rest of the economy. So, proven process. This is the actual sheet, steps to professionalization. It's got hyperlinks to all the shows, all the resources. I'm going to send you this as a document as well. The star there, step number 1. I'm showing you this is legitimately step number 1. You are at the ground floor of this. Standard operating procedures is the base on which we do everything else in our companies. So, do you experience any of these? Seeing if you need some SOPs. Difficult scheduling? Who's mastered scheduling perfectly? Difficult hiring? Producing work profitably, callbacks on your projects, problem clients, daily chaos. Things just pulling you in all directions. Oh, we got an estimate. We got a painter that needs something. A project manager's got a question. I got to do some marketing. There's some calls. There's some emails. Or general stagnation. You've been going, and you just can't crack that 800,000, 1.5, $3.2 million barrier, things like that. You can't hire your first employee. SOPs, believe it or not, will fix every single one of these. And so will professionalization of your business. You don't think they're intertwined? They absolutely are. So here's the solution. You need an SOP, which looks something like this, and you need some accountability. Don't ever forget the human and management side. So we are going to go deep into the standard operating procedures, the algorithms, the recipes, the step-by-step methods, but don't ever forget that we run human businesses, so many clients, so many employees. And if you don't apply a little humanness to this, it's a failure. It needs that combination of data and feelings. So what are SOPs? The strict definition is a set of step-by-step instructions compiled by an organization to help workers carry out routine operations, right? SOPs aim to achieve efficiency, quality output, and uniformity of performance while reducing miscommunication and failures. I would argue it's the chaos eliminator and it's a chaos limiter. Joey in Instagram. Nick just started following you and looking to learn and get better every day. Been painting about 9 years now. Dude, great to have you along here, man. This is why I continue these processes every year. There's new people that show up every year. Tonight, we're talking about SOPs. Glad to have you along. An SOP is an algorithm. An algorithm is nothing more than this. Fancy words, right? There's an input, an algorithm, and then an output. So an algorithm is a set of rules to obtain the expected output from a given input. So you have an input, you have like a client and money and an employee and some paint. The algorithm is the standard operating procedures in which you put them through so that the output is a happy client, a paid employee, and a paid company, right? But those algorithms, those recipes, those standard operating procedures are the thing you feed things in, and then you get things fed out of them as well too. So you hear these words, algorithms and things like this. A standard operating procedure is nothing more than that. So here's kind of how we think about SOPs. Most people connect my SOPs and my talking of SOPs to painting. Painting is the baseline. It's my proven product. We have to, when we go to market, when we start trying to grow the business, if we don't have a cabinet process nailed down where we can look a client in the eye and guarantee them that this is going to stick to this is going to turn out like this, no ifs, ands, or buts, we have not done our job, and we need to start with that. So here's how I think about the progression in which you should create SOPs for your company, or just steal mine or somebody else's. Start with the coatings, right? And then you do a set of standard operating procedures for the production of that. How do you actually order paint? How do you schedule? How do you get labor to there? How do you greet a client? How do you kick off a job? How do you close out a job? All that good stuff. Then you do sales. How do we actually sell some of these paint jobs? Could be marketing as well too. How do we get a chance to have an estimate for a paint job so that we can do a paint job for our client? Operations. Now we have sales, we have production, we have painters. What does every day look like? What do the management frequencies look like? What do the routines look like? What kind of data and feelings do we need to run well? And then on top of it all is the vision. How do we plan for a year? I have a standard operating procedure on how I decompress from a year, 2024, and then take that data and plan for 2025 using real hard data for week by week plans all the time. So you can't begin to start visioning for your company if you don't have SOPs. You're going to be pulled into that painting chaos, the callbacks, the paint failures, the things not working right, employees getting angry and leaving because the coatings don't turn out right, things like that. You need to build your house, your professional business, on a base of solid standard operating procedures. So why SOPs? You promise the client something. Best way to deliver on that is to have a guaranteed process, a proven process to do that. You want your people to win. When I send my apprentices and craftspeople and master craftspeople out there, you can say, well, this one didn't turn out. We'll try again on the next one. We are resilient as business owners, way more resilient than the average person. Have to be. Our employees shouldn't have to be as resilient as us. You give them a couple paint failures, even if it's not their fault, they get bummed out and leave. Good people will leave you because of chaos like that on the job site. You want to reduce friction. You just want everybody to be happy. And the longer I do this as a manager, I realize one of the main functions of a manager is to reduce the stress and friction in your people's lives. Also, you want simplification, right? I have a 17-step process on how to paint the walls in a bedroom. 17 seems like a lot until you do it. Most people write out a 54-step thing. I've got it down to 17 steps to do a 4-hour bedroom. Ultra profitable, ultra beautiful, time and time again, right? Do you need an SOP? I would argue there's lots of things. There's more things I don't SOP in my company than the things I do SOP in my company, right? Don't add complexity where it's not needed. Phil, you brought up the good thing here. Where's the SOP for beard growth? Don't need one. Just grows automatically. The way I test this is this, a good example. Do you need a standard operating procedure to call each one of your employees every week and make sure on Friday they get their paycheck? You do not. Guess what? If they don't, they're going to let you know. So I haven't got a call in 2.5, 3 years, since that wacky time of COVID. Paychecks, 25 to 40 of them get delivered every single week. And we have processes set up to make sure that happens. If that process breaks down, guess what? People are incentivized to call me. So I would say you don't need an SOP for something like that. There's certain automatic forces of nature that will cause those things to happen. So Cleveland Mural Company on Instagram. Glad to be here. Thanks for sharing the knowledge. Great to see you too, my friend. Okay. The E-myth: businesses don't fail because they miss a huge lofty goal. Right? They fail in the mundane, seemingly insignificant, everyday tasks that make up every business. And this is something that I had to learn. You don't win business, especially a house painting business, by these crazy moonshots and innovation. It's likely you're not going to come up with anything new that anybody hasn't before, but the people who win are the people who can do a series of very simple things consistently over a very long time horizon. That's one of the things that I took away from the E-myth, right? So, but grit might be the death of you, right? I pride myself in a lot of fortitude, a lot of grit, a lot of gumption, working really hard, just going for it every day, 100 hours a week. Theoretically, professionalized leaders should have a low tolerance for pain. This is actually something I learned from people who are watching on Instagram right now. I won't name them, but they gave me a great lesson very early on in my professional life, which is we hold this up as a badge of honor. Oh, I got such a high pain tolerance. I just grit and I bleed and just go for it, right? Professionalized business owners tend to have a lower tolerance for pain in certain areas. They're successful because if a process has stress and friction, they don't just grit through it. They stop, they make a process for it, put accountability system over it, and then fix it forever. Other people, like I did in a past professional life, just grit through it, go through it, gumption, blood, tears, everything else. And I use my effort and my stress and my pain tolerance to get through it instead of actually solving it and having a system that's replicable into the future. So, some perspective. There's a tale of two companies, right? I left my family business 17 years ago, more than 17 years ago now, right? I know that the steps to professionalization, whether we were going to keep it as a family business, 3 people like you see in the picture, or we were going to grow really big like I did now, these things need to be done to make sure we have a business that will support all of these families, employees as well too. So my father, God love him, he has not done any of these things. And at the end of his life, he has nothing to sell. There's really no legacy. There's nothing there. Doesn't own a computer, doesn't own a cell phone, never has done any of these steps to professionalization. Not a bad guy, but it's a choice. And there's certain ramifications of these choices throughout life, right? There's no employees to take over. There's nothing to sell. It might be a couple ladders and a truck, but that's about it. There's no shop. There's no anything there. There's no processes. The business is solely relying on him. And if he breaks his knee, the business goes away. I'm not giving a value judgment on that. If that's what you want to do, all you have to do is be aware of that and price in that risk, right? So that you don't just give yourself a job. Most people in our industry could go work for a very big professional painting company and have a lot more surety, a lot more insurance, a lot more free time, and a lot more pay. I'm not telling you to do this. I'm just saying, if you're going to start your own business, you better be making a heck of a lot more than if you could be as an employee, because you're taking on a lot more risk. So at the tail of these things, I have a business right now I could sell. I could do an ESOP. I could sell a majority stake to somebody else. I could bring other people in it to run it. There's something interesting going on here because of the choices I've made and the extra input that I put into this business that all professional businesses do. It is a distinct choice, right? One is not good, one is not bad. You just have to understand what's at the end of that series of choices. So this is what real businesses do. I have an SOP to figure out if I need an SOP. That's kind of how the world works, right? The scientific process. It's a beautiful thing I learned back in grade school. And so you basically do this. When we try to figure out problems or even create SOPs in our company, we observe something, right? Then we have a hypothesis. We keep having callbacks on decks. The hypothesis is there must be something wrong in the process here. So we lay out a standard operating procedure. We do an experiment, the bottom side of the wheel. We take a look at that experiment. We look at the data. We come to a conclusion. We observe. We make another hypothesis. We experiment, we analyze, and we conclude. And we keep going through that scientific process. Success, what I found, is people that can rapidly cycle through this and innovate. If something is not working on a job, they test something new, they write it down, they test it again. If there's no problems, great, we got a good thing. When a new problem shows up, then we start looking at that. Was that an anomaly? Was that force majeure, act of God? Or was that something that actually needs to be changed? The SOPs that I'm going to give you at the end of this are the product of 30 years of me doing this scientific experiment process, just like this, and testing things. So on any of these experiments to come up with processes in your company, you have to reduce variables. If you change the person, the brush, the deck stain, the wash process, and the weather to see if your, deck process is good, if something goes good or something goes bad, how can you pinpoint the variable? It might be a combination of multiple variables, which would then render your test bad. So you are a variable. Your clients are a variable. Your variable. Your apprentices, your craftspeople, structure, substrates, weather, coatings, client expectations and standards. Again, act of God. So there's a whole bunch of things that can affect this stuff. So as you make your processes, if you want to test out a new paint, keep the dang processes the same. Just test the new paint. Don't also test a new patch, a new sander, a new light, a new fan, all this other stuff. Keep it very simple. So Jack Jordan, Nick, you're inspiring. You continue to move the needle. Thanks, man, on Facebook. I really do appreciate the compliments. That's absolutely awesome. And thanks everybody for watching on Facebook and Instagram. So humans are the variable in all this stuff here. So you want to get these as consistent as possible, knowing that humans are squishy and irrational and everybody has their own motivations and they're all over the place. This would be an easy business if there were no humans involved. That's a little facetious to say because we have such a very humanistic business, but it's a statement to let you know that the paint is standard, the pants are standard, the brushes are standard, the ladders are standard, the vehicles are standard. I mean, almost everything we have is standard. Nobody really innovates. I don't know a painting company that makes their own patch, give or take. It's all just off the shelf stuff. So really the variable and success is won through humans and inspiring and motivating and coaching and mentoring and things like that. So just don't forget that in that whole process here. So I'm going to pause right here. Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, LinkedIn. I want you guys to share this to your feeds, share this to your stories right now. Doesn't cost you a thing, means the world to me. It's one of the easiest things you can do to support this and everything else. I want you to share these into the painter groups as well too. Get it into Tanner's group, painting contractors, get it into Paint Ed, get it into Business Brush, all that other stuff. Cody Fox, Facebook. I can't believe I didn't come across this sooner. Exactly what I needed to see at the beginning of this new year. Cody Fox. I do this exactly for people like you, right? This is the time of year that I wanted this stuff the most. Other people help me. We're going through it. We have a 7-week process where we're going to go through the 7 steps to professionalization. Tonight's night 1. Let's get going on some more SOPs. People going to a standardized product versus taking a non-standardized product to the client. There is a production theory out there that McDonald's has a standardized product in a standardized building that you can come and get or not, right? You have to categorize what we do by this mass customization. We take a variable product to a variable person under variable conditions. We do mass customization. We have standard paint, we have some standard processes, but we go to someplace different under variable conditions and customize that to fit that certain thing. It's not pure custom. Each thing we do is not a one-off piece of art that never is going to be replicated again, but it's not that far off, right? We have the client's expectations. We have the house. We have the weather. We have the colors. We have the substrates. We have everything that's ever been done to the house. And then we have to apply that. We want it to be a standardized product to limit the friction and up the profit of our businesses, but we have to customize it a little bit. That's where an SOP isn't perfect, but you can iron out about 99% of the friction in something like that. So you think about this mass production. We go to a factory. We go to McDonald's to get a McRib, Aaron Steininger. Mass customization is the factory. Us goes to the client. We are a factory that produces this thing. We have to modify it very slightly. We go to the house. We change it a little for the house. We try not to change it that much because that's really unprofitable, really frictiony, really stressful. But we also want to give the client a good experience too. So think about this. Mass production is this. This is an actual standard operating procedure for McDonald's. If you think my 17 steps in 4 hours to paint a bedroom is micromanagement and scammy and iron fisted boss, McDonald's gets down to the second, folks, right? Bun toasting, bun toasting, 11 seconds. It toasts the buns at 545 degrees for 11 seconds, right? If you want to think my painting SOPs are micromanaging, try working at a McDonald's sometimes. The oven must be 545 degrees. You will toast the buns for 11 seconds. Assembly, 20 seconds. Wrapping, 14 seconds. Not 15, not 20, not 30 seconds, half a minute, not 60. 14 seconds, folks. So if you want to replicate something over and over and over again and have thousands and thousands of stores and grow, you can't be dealing with this customization of everything where everybody does something different. You're going to have so much friction. It's not going to allow you to professionalize your business, right? Mass customization is this, right? Sometimes we even take things out of the house. We apply the same process and the same products, but our cabinet doors are different. Right now, we have trim, we have passage doors, we have 3 different sets of cabinets in my shop. Guess what? All different woods, all different substrates, all different profiles of panels on these cabinet doors, cuts of trim, profiles of trim. We're applying the same process and the same products to every single one of them. And each one's going to be a little different, but the products and the processes will not. Right? But then we also have customization. Then there's the art piece. We like to think what we do is art, and the things we do are beautiful, but we're not creating paint and we're not creating color. We're not creating a thing that's one-off to a house. We take pre-mixed colors, we take pre-made colors, and we take paint that's already mixed and we apply it in a standard thing. Now, the combinations might be unique, but we're really not doing anything that hasn't been done before, if I'm being kind to us about our industry. Doesn't mean it's not cool. Doesn't mean it's not artful. Doesn't mean it's not craftsmanship. But we have to be clear with ourselves that we do mass customization, right? So think about this. SOPs create a trust environment, even in a mass customization environment. So you take the average deck in Minnesota. You want to talk about variables. We got cedar, we got pine, we got ipe, we got Brazilian cherry. We have 1,000 coats of stain. We have the weather. We have this deck, which homeowners applied, I believe, some homemade stuff. There might have been some motor oil, some linseed oil, and this and that, turned super black. I've never seen it before. But what we did as a company is we used our standard wash and brighten process, and then we used a standard stain process, and we got a standard result at the end, instead of everything being custom. And if you want to talk about, well, listen, decks are different everywhere. Everyone is a little different. You start off with this, you need this, you can see through the finish. It's a variable thing. It's all custom. No, it's not, folks. It's not. It might be 90% standard and 10% custom, where you got to apply a different stain to get a look or adjust your chemicals a little bit. But you can take something even with the most variables, a deck in Minnesota, apply the same process, the same chemicals, the same wash process, and the same staining process to get a standardized result. A trust environment for your clients is this. I can look a client in the face and say, in 17 years of running this business, we've never found a deck that we can't improve. Yours might be it, but in 17 years, it's a pretty good track record. We'll do 30 to 50 decks a year, give or take, right? We can give you this. This is the weirdest deck I've ever done, and that's the process we got in it, a trust environment. Standard operating procedures are comfort blankets to decent human beings, right? So if you employ people and you complain about these young, stupid, lazy kids that constantly learn from you, start their own businesses or leave or things like that, I will say, have you done the things a manager and a leader should do to show them a future in this, right? Do you have a multi-year pay scale with metrics on how to get those things so they can hold you accountable as well as you can hold them accountable? Do you give them the data from your job costing to show them how they're doing on the jobs? Do you track their callbacks? Do you have training? Do you mentor them? Do you ask them what their life goals are? If you haven't, these kids might not be stupid and lazy, right? We may be bad bosses if we don't do that stuff for them. So a standard operating procedure could be a pay scale. It's a standard operating procedure. Painters, if you get 75% of your jobs at or under budget and you work 2,000 hours a year, you are eligible for X amount of dollars of raises. That is a standard operating procedure. It's measurable. It's like a light switch. You did it or you didn't, things like that. So Tristy from Instagram, I think meeting Nick at an SW event was the best thing that happened to my business. Right on. Absolutely love to hear that. Love to pass on the goodwill and everything towards other companies. So what do SOPs look like? Let's give some examples. The World Health Organization has a very famous standard operating procedure. There's a 19-step surgical safety checklist, universally accepted by almost all medical things. There's things that you do before surgery, there's things that you do during surgery, and there's things you do after. Now, it doesn't say cut this vein at this angle. It has some things on there like signing the person in, right? Checking to make sure that they're the right person. Checking the body parts, right? Things like that. It's a process that you can overlay to every single surgery on the human body. Now, there are very specific SOPs for open heart surgery, but the general process of bringing a patient in, getting them prepped, doing stuff during the surgery and out is a widely accepted thing by the World Health Organization. So widely accepted that it is one of the most famous standard operating procedures on earth. And it deals with one of the things that has the most variables, the human body, give or take. So if they can standardize that much, I think we can standardize a paint job, right? Here's one that I am intimately aware of. I always like to bring up a military SOP because I learned about standard operating procedures in the military. For anybody who's ever served, there's a thing called FMs, field manuals. FM 5-13-23, give or take. There's millions of these things. There's libraries in buildings full of these things. I learned how not to do SOPs by the military. I also learned how to do SOPs by the military. There's many standard operating procedures I hate, like how to fold the linen on your bed. To me, it's overkill. I get it. They want you to be disciplined. The minor things count. Good, we're good, fine. I got sick of that kind of stuff. What I really enjoyed as a military parachutist is what you're seeing right here. There is a person called a jump master who will do a series of inspections after you put your parachute on. I was very interested in that. This standard operating procedure is drilled into you with military precision. They will run their hand. They will cup their hand, put it behind a strap, follow the strap from this buckle to this buckle, not removing it, looking for any breaks or tears. And it is a choreographed dance. It is beautiful. If you guys want to be very satisfied, go to YouTube or TikTok and look up Army parachutist jump master checks. And they have this beautiful series of crisp movements. They check your reserve chute. They check your static line. They're moving their hands. They're moving around here, pulling on things. And it's every movement is choreographed like a dance that you have to memorize as a jump master. I was very interested in that SOP, and I love that. That's how I learned how to do SOPs. Remember this? Recipes, algorithms, our standard operating procedures. These are all the same things, right? If you want to make sourdough bread, you're probably not going to guess what ingredients go in and guess how to do it. It's very likely that you'll get some variable result at the end of it. So I pulled out a recipe called Baked Bologna Jubilee, right? There is a recipe for this, right? Even though you can see in there's some bologna, there's some bananas, it looks to be some black olives, something like that. There's still a recipe for that, folks. You got to still get it right. So I bring this up as just sort of like a level setting with everybody, which is if you think standard operating procedures for cleaning out a sprayer or painting the walls in a bedroom or painting cabinets is overkill and micromanagement, you have recipe cards in your house. You have an instruction manual on how to fix an engine. These things are not poo-pooed at. They're not called micromanagement. They're godsends. I'm not going to guess how to make sourdough bread or fix an engine. That's ridiculous. You wouldn't guess on how to restore a Victorian mansion. Just because you've done it once doesn't mean you're an expert, right? You got to have that stuff written down so you can transfer it to other people. So there's different kinds of SOPs though. Let's just, I'm giving you the whole perspective of everything here. There's technical SOPs and theory or general SOPs. So a technical SOP is this. This is like screw hardness, bolt tightening, Newton meters, stuff like this. But there's also an adhesion test, which is a theory, right? My adhesion test, which I'm going to send to you in this packet, has 8 steps, give or take. It doesn't matter what you're testing, glass, tile, metal, wood, anything else. It doesn't matter. There's a theory that if you prep a surface, apply some coating, let it dry overnight, try to scratch it off the next day, if it doesn't scratch off, you have done a successful adhesion test. The Newton meters of an M5 metric bolt on how to tighten it, or a grade 8 bolt, is very specific. It has to be this many Newton meters for this sort of like tech spec, give or take. The adhesion test is a little squishy. So if you were to make it too specific, it wouldn't be able to be done. But when you're tightening bolts with a God, I forget the dang, a torque wrench, it has to be very specific or things could go wrong. So I bring this up because I want you to think about how specific you make SOPs, right? If you say, I apply 32 Newton meters of force to my Purdy White Dove 3/4 inch nap roller only on walls with knockdown texture, how much compliance do you think you're going to get with that? And how are you going to test that, right? So at some point, you have to be careful how technical you make your SOPs. I'm not going to get into this one. This one makes me laugh out loud thinking about it, but there's a thing called the optimal stop theory. There is a standard operating procedure. This is an old test that they did back in, I don't know, 50s or 60s, where they tried to figure out what's the optimal way to find a secretary for your office. You can extrapolate this to find a painter for my business. They actually found out that, because you say, well, how long do you interview people before you just make a choice, before you just found the optimal? Well, here's the deal. They've proven with science that once you've used 37% of your time, you should, if you haven't already found a good candidate, you should take the next one. There's a whole podcast on this stuff that will explain the whole thing. But the most beautiful thing is, well, how could you possibly know where to find the right employees? Scientifically, if you want to put things in your favor, if you gave yourself 2 weeks, you would say 37% of that is about 3 days, give or take, right? If I haven't found the perfect candidate in 3 days, I should take the next best candidate after that, because this can go on infinitum, right? Look up the optimal stop theory. You can also apply this to finding a wife or a husband or a partner or a spouse. Hilariously, this theory, if you follow it out, if you take the average lifespan and figure out what 37% of it, it says if you have not got married or found your partner in life by 26.1 years of age, you should pick the next suitable person that meets your basic criteria. Science, baby. Awesome. Okay, a couple questions from Instagram. Wage Painting. Nick, what software or programs do you use to make your SOPs? I use Google G Sheets for all this stuff because it's universal. Google's not going anywhere. And when I send them to you guys, you can modify them. You can throw them into Microsoft Excel. Things won't transfer perfectly. I would urge you to use Google, but everything I make is in Google, basically. MP Painting. Made a simple SOP on job costing based off the template you sent me. It's made for a very efficient estimating process and improved conversion. Dude, tear rolling down my cheek, music to my ears. Couldn't make me happier by stuff like that. You even included job costing, my little thing. So I absolutely love that. How to make an SOP, right? So first principle reasoning is this. Before you just say, we're going to take 17 steps and do it, you have to say, what problem are we trying to solve? What outcome do we want? And what are the inputs that we have to put in there, right? And all of it's pretty much going to be the same for our painting companies. Might be a little different for you. But basically, we have inputs. We got to run them through our algorithm, our SOP, to get a proper output. But first principle reasoning is saying that What are we actually trying to solve, right? We want a beautiful shine on these walls, drywall, gypsum walls in a room. We also want a happy client. We also want to make money. Does this SOP move us towards that? That's a big question. So simplicity and its effect on compliance. This is something, again, how technical do we want these things? How many pages do we want them? I have a theory that no SOP should be longer than one page, give or take. 95% of my humans will comply with a very simple SOP. 10% of my people will comply with the perfect, most complex SOP ever. 32 Newton meters of pressure on a Purdy 3/4 inch white dove roller with a Purdy handle on gypsum walls with a knockdown texture when you're using Sherwin-Williams duration mat. How specific and technical are you going to get? Because the more specific and technical you get, the more that people are not going to comply with it. So you have a choice. There is perfect. I did a 1-page weekly on this. That's not attainable. Perfect is not attainable. What is the next best thing? And never let perfect stand in the way of really damn good. So where to start creating SOPs? Number one, like I said, process to deliver your products. Think about coding specs, think about application methods, right? Then you go to processes that facilitate delivery of those. Your estimating, your production, or your recruiting. Your external processes that create the opportunity to deliver your product. The marketing that lets you estimate, that lets you paint. And then your internal processes. We're talking job costing, benchmarking, financial reporting, budgeting, all that other stuff, which allows you to market, which allows you to estimate project, which allows you to sell them, which allows you to produce them, which allows you to actually apply the paint. But it's all built on the painting SOPs. We are painters. We have painting SOPs. So training SOPs versus SOP checklists. Again, in my company, there's 2 sets of these bad boys. We have the big one, the one that nears perfection. Many, many slides, very technical. It's made with videos, stop motion, images, diagrams, human interaction, training. And then there's the 1-page condensation of all those things. The thing I'm going to send you is the 1-page condensation of all those things. What I'm also going to do is give you these 2 guides, how to make a full SOP and how to make an SOP checklist. So number one, you start with your SOP checklist. You can see that. Here is my exterior checklist. Yep, there's my mouse. You can see my exterior checklist. I gave myself an SOP on how I create an SOP for the SOP, which is if there are 27 steps in my exterior house painting SOP, I give myself 1 slide to create all the education I need for that. I'm actually showing you the slide for step number 10, plastic and mass, the miscellaneous items on the outside of a house. After the windows and doors and everything else have been plastic, we look for the miscellaneous stuff, the weird outlets, the stone, the other stuff like that. I have listed whose responsibility it is, what the process is, and here's some tips from a master craftsman. I have a picture. I have diagrams of when we say miscellaneous items, what are we looking at? We're looking at an old historic house light. We're looking at some brick veneer in decoration, and we're looking at an old exterior outlet, right? This is for training. I don't send my people out with a 27-page PowerPoint presentation to do this stuff. This is for training purposes only. I send them out with this, the exterior SOP checklist that's laminated so they can actually use it in the field. Now, the training SOP is exactly that, which is you pick a slide, you pick a thing, you make a slide, and you train the living heck out of it. How to make an SOP checklist. So this starts off when you have nothing, right? We want to figure out how to do walls in a bedroom. This is what you're seeing the original process is right here. So have a proven process. If a process produces a reliable result each time, it's worthy of creating a standard operating procedure. If you are an interior house painter, you should probably have a wall SOP, right? So you start with doing the major steps. People overcomplicate creating SOPs all the time. It's just all over the place. Number 1, almost every single SOP starts with 3 steps, potentially 4. There's prep, there's painting, there's de-prep. Victorian mansion, painting epoxy floors, doing cabinets, texture on a ceiling. It starts with prep. It starts with applying something to it. And then there's de-prep, right? So if we take those 3 main steps, we can extrapolate it out into, those are major steps. We go to the minor steps. So we have prep, we have top coat 1, top coat 2, and de-prep. And within those, what are the major things in prep that we need the person to know? We don't necessarily need to know what style putty knife they're using, but the major steps would be something like this: drop cloths. It would be patching, taping and masking, and switch plates in the prep. Now you can keep going on orders of magnitude more and more steps, but I would urge you, cut everything out you can on this stuff, right? So I put the important tasks on there. There's 4 main steps and a couple sub steps. I have some tips on painting. I have the deprep process. And then once we get the actual prep, paint, deprep process done, then we put related tasks on there. So for me, on my standard operating procedures, I love to have put the yard sign in because that's something that is easiest done by the painter on there. Unload the vehicle, verify the scope, make a project plan. There's 4 things that I don't necessarily want to put on there, but are key to doing on every single job before you actually start painting, right? And then there's stuff afterwards, which is fill out the hours used on your work order and then pack up your vehicle and go, things like that. So that's, we test these things. And every year I look at my SOPs and think, is there anything I can cut from these things, right? So an SOP checklist is basically this. This is what you're left in the end. I laminate these things. I color code it by prep, paint, and deprep, send it out in the field. If I'm being honest with you guys, if you do a great job of SOPs, put them as the lifeblood of your company, train the living hell out of them, about 4 to 6 weeks after an apprentice start, they will never look at these things again. They will never look at these things again. I only bring SOPs out way later in time. If we get some faults on a project, I pull out that SOP and I walk through it with the painters and we figure out, was one of these things missed? Was one of these things not done 100%? Things like that. And this is what a laminated field SOP checklist looks like. You can see front to back laminated. We actually have a laminating machine in the office for this. We have a hole puncher. We put a ring in them and every apprentice is given one of these things. We also have SOPs for supplies and tools and stuff like this, because if we want a standardized result, it would help if your inputs weren't all variable all over the place. Famously, we have one main brush this company uses. There's a 3-inch Purdy Pro Extra Swan that we use for some exterior stuff or some very thick ceiling texture, but we use a Purdy Pro Extra Elasco, 2.5-inch straight cut for almost everything we do. So my apprentices don't have to guess what grit sanding paper. We have one. What grit sanding block? We have one. We got a couple forms of plastic. We got one caulk. We got one patch. We got one tape, and we got one brush, one roller cover. We make it easy for everybody. It's just a beautiful, beautiful thing like that. So we also have some simple SOPs for everyday carry and for loading the vans. It's simple. There's totes, there's things. You throw them in the van. Also, every painter in my company is issued a series of everyday carry stuff. We have a prep bag, we have a utility knife, we have a Purdy folding tool, and we give them a cleaning brush. That's one of my beloved 25-year-old Purdy brushes. This is actually my everyday carry that you're seeing right here. You can see it's old by the black patch from the company. That is old, old, old. That is probably 17 years old right there. And my tape hook, of course. So there are some very basic things like that that you can do to make sure your people's lives are really easy. Quick reference guide to spraying. I will give you one of these too. Here's the substrates I use. Here's the coatings I use, the type of sprayer, and then also the tip size that we use for that stuff. Standard operating procedures. Painters don't have to guess, right? Sprayer operation and cleaning. Oh my Lord. This is one that everybody falters on, not because it's a difficult task or the SOP is hard, because people don't like cleaning sprayers, right? So this is what we do to train people to operate and clean sprayers. We have a training SOP. This is what my apprenticeship program looks like, everybody, right? It's not just painting stuff. We have an SOP for training the SOPs, give or take, right? And we're going to get into estimation and production in later shows, and I'll give you all the SOPs for that. Today, we're going to be giving you the proven processes, the painting, the supplies, the things like that, some sprayer operation. But we have an estimator sales process checklist as well too. And what you're seeing here is a screenshot of my Gmail, and we have stock responses and stock questions to a lot of our stuff. I think I have 19 different stock responses just in my email to help people out, give or take, because otherwise you're just replicating the same thing over and over and over again, give or take. You guys know from communicating with me, I customize mine quite a bit, but for my clients, when they say, hey, I want to provide the paint, we have a stock answer for that. We don't allow you to provide the paint. Like there. Part of our contract, which is something I'm going to send you in a later show in standards and deliverables and HR and all that other stuff and production process. Our contract has some standard operating procedures about you don't supply the paint. We have to supply the paint as a company, right? And so here's where SOPs lie in the whole realm of things here. You start with the goals of the business. That creates deliverables for your people. That creates job descriptions on how to get the deliverables. The SOPs will then correspond with the job description and the deliverables. And then you as a manager have to have an accountability system to then make sure the SOPs are followed so that people follow their job descriptions. They deliver what you need for the goals of the business. You flourish, and then you can pay them more, reduce their stress, and do fun things. So these are just a list of lessons learned that I've had with SOPs over the years. Number one, in bold, if it's not written down, it doesn't exist. So everybody in my company knows how to do cabinets. Great. Just show me where it's listed. Show me where it's written down. It doesn't feel like it makes a big difference. It absolutely does. Because you could say, well, what's the fourth step? Right? And then somebody'd have to walk through it. With my stuff, you just pull it out and say, this is the fourth step right here, right? If creating SOPs takes you more than a few hours, you're doing it wrong, right? Most of us know how to paint. If we own a painting company and we've never painted before, we can pretty much guess how to paint a set of cabinets, right? We're not discovering this in real time. If it's taking you days, weeks, months to do these things, call me, take a look at mine. I can help you. Email me. We can walk through it. But people overcomplicate this, right? They let perfection stand in the way of really good. SOPs in a file cabinet are useless. They need to be taken out. They need to be trained. People need to be held accountable to them. Nothing hones a system like teaching it to others, right? This is what I consider the difference between a craftsperson and a master craftsperson. If you consider yourself one of the finest in the craft and you never taught somebody else to do it, I would argue you got a little room to grow and to hone your own skills, give or take. Start simple. Add complexity only where it's needed. That's a big one. Things need to be measurable. So when you write an SOP, don't say paint it good. Say apply 1 coat of Sherwin-Williams duration matte with this roller cover and this brush to wet mill thickness of 5.1. It'll dry to 3.2, leaving you with the standard finish, right? You don't need to put all that stuff in there, but you have to have things be a light switch. Did you patch or not patch? Did you sand or not sand? Did you put on 1 coat? Did you put on 2 coats? Did you do a white glove clean at the end? They shouldn't be subjective things. They should absolutely be things that either were proven or disproven, like a light switch. It's either on or off. SOPs are living documents. I change mine every year, give or take. I don't change them much, right? Because they're proven over a lot of years and they're very universal. But you should keep an open mind. You should keep an open mind about changing these things. Remember, Blockbuster, they died because they strict adherence to these SOPs and the strategy, and they ended up going under because of it. And also, leader's responsibility, us, leader and manager, we got to do pattern detection, right? If we're seeing the same thing showing up as faults and friction points and stress on jobs, we need to fix it and not just grit through it. Oh, it happens all the time. Your people are going to get stressed out and leave. You need to actively work on a standard operating procedure to make sure they go away. You can nearly eliminate callbacks and stressful interactions with clients by a lot of these things. It's absolutely fundamental to this. The more we do this, the more we recruit the right people, train them the right way, give them the right standard operating procedure, manage them the right way, our callbacks go down, our tense interactions and angry clients go down. It's just a beautiful thing. Everything works in unison. So here's the deal, folks. If something goes wrong on a job site, 98% of the time, the standard operating procedure is not followed. Now, it doesn't mean people just missed a bunch of steps. Sometimes they don't do steps to 100%, which is if you look at every one of my standard operating procedures, the humans are what add the magic to SOPs. You still need to use common sense. You still need to hustle. You still need to do each task 100% before you move on. It's very important. Don't forget the human side of this, right? My data points, decent human beings fill the gaps of the SOPs. I don't need to write down how much pressure to put on a roller because we found the right people who understand that they don't need to be taught that sort of thing. They might need to be taught how to use a new 2K with a cross-linker and a reducer and a thickener and a hardener and all that other stuff because it's very technical. But decent human beings really do kind of fill the gap of all the things that you think you have to write in, but don't, right? So here it is, folks, for a copy of my Steps to Professionalization, which is all 7 steps, plus a whole bunch of other resources, links to shows. That'll be here for you. In that, ask for my SOP packet and also ask for my how to make SOP guides. You can also just email me at this email address and say, give me your SOPs. I watch your SOP show. I watch show number, 488, 449, give or take. Give me those things and I will do that there. Please do not just email me and say, give me the stuff. I won't know which show it is because we're about to do 7 or 8 shows here where I give resources at every show, and people will be watching these at various times. So I will be looking for a couple last questions before we go. I've been blabbering on for over an hour here. I think I broke my record. These shows are usually an hour and 45 minutes a piece. I'm trying to be more concise for you guys so you can get some sleep here. So Brent Dufresne, this is really helping understand the importance of SOPs. Dude, mission accomplished. This is great. So number one, thank you everybody on Instagram. Thank you everybody on Facebook. Thank you everybody on YouTube. Thank you everybody for LinkedIn right here. I'm going to sign off, but not before I make one last request. Like this, follow it, subscribe to it, share it, get it into your stories, get it into your feed, screenshot this, make a post, tell people to watch this, send them a link, ask for my resources, share these resources with other people like other people have shared it with me. Mindful Painting, what's up, man? One of my best friends in the industry just showed up in the last minute on Instagram. So you guys will have this show to watch over. It's live, but it's going to be archived. Facebook's probably the best place to go for that sort of thing. It's got a bunch of the live links and everything else. Join me at the Expo. It's a SuperBowl. I'm seeing a lot of familiar names that are going to also be at the Expo here. Tyler Gentry, are you going to be talking about production rates? Go to the Mastering the Basics things. Estimating and production. We will likely talk about production rates and estimating because we do estimating based on production rates then. So you're probably looking at next week. I think we're next week for that one. So any other questions you guys have, I'm here for you. Like, share, subscribe, get some friends onto this thing. I absolutely appreciate you guys taking your evenings here. This is absolutely awesome to do this with you. God, the PCA, Ask a Painter, this has brightened my world. It's introduced me to a lot of you guys, and I couldn't be more pleased with the direction our industry is going because people do stuff like this. So signing off for the first show of the 5th season of Mastering the Basics. Ask a Painter's been around for 8 or 9 years now. I've been doing this for 5 years. Mastering the Basics, first show of the season right here. Proven process. We have 8 more shows to go, 7 more steps, and an Expo show in between. Tune in every single week for the next 2 months here, and I'm going to be showing you how to professionalize your business, and I'll give you every dang resource I have that helped me go from 0 to 40 people in a couple of years. Peace out, everybody. Have a good